She leaves without a word. No warning, no fight, no long goodbye. Just silence. And that silence is the loudest thing you've ever heard. You replay every moment, every conversation, trying to find the missing piece. Was it something you said? Was it something you didn't do? Or was it something you never even knew was happening beneath the surface? The truth is, when a woman leaves without explanation, it shatters a man's sense of control. It creates this haunting emptiness because your brain craves reasons, but your heart is left with questions that may never be answered. And that, my friend, is where most men get trapped, in the endless cycle of self-blame and confusion. But here's the secret: nobody tells you. Her silence is not random. Women rarely leave out of nowhere. What feels like a sudden vanishing act is usually the result of 100 little moments, stacked like invisible bricks, until the wall between you becomes unbreakable. She doesn't write the final chapter when she walks away. She wrote it long before, in the pauses you ignored, in the glances you dismissed, in the needs that were never spoken aloud because she thought you'd feel them without words. That's the language of female psychology: subtle, emotional, layered. If you don't learn to see it, you'll only notice when it's too late. I want you to sit with this thought. Women don't leave because of one explosive event. They leave because of the quiet erosion of connection. A man thinks everything is fine until the day it's not. But for her, the countdown started long ago. Maybe it was the night you were physically present but emotionally absent. Maybe it was when she opened her heart and felt unseen. Or maybe she realized she could no longer grow beside you. These are things she won't always explain, not because she wants to hurt you, but because explaining means reliving, and sometimes walking away in silence feels like the only way to survive. So if you've ever been left without an explanation, understand this: it wasn't truly without signs. The signs were there, written in her behavior, carved into her tone, whispered in her distance. The real tragedy is that most men never learned how to read them, until the silence taught them the hardest lesson of all. Think about this. Men crave clarity, women crave connection. When that connection starts slipping away, she doesn't always announce it. She feels it, and because she feels it so deeply, she assumes you should sense it too. But most men don't. We live in a world where men are taught to solve problems only after they explode, while women quietly monitor the subtle shifts long before the explosion happens. That's why she leaves without telling you, because, in her mind, she already told you 1,000 times, just not with words. Every sigh, every withdrawn glance, every time she said, "I'm fine," with a tone that wasn't fine at all. Those were the messages. Messages she thought you'd pick up on if you truly saw her. But here's the devastating twist. Women often test long before they walk away. Not tests to trick you, but tests to see if you'll notice her emotional temperature. Maybe she pulled back slightly to see if you'd chase her. Maybe she went quiet for a day to see if you'd break the silence. Maybe she opened up a little about her insecurities just to check if you'd hold them gently or brush them aside. When those moments don't land, she stops trying. She learns to keep it all inside. And that's when her departure begins, not with her feet, but with her heart. A man often asks, "Why didn't she just tell me?" But the deeper truth is, women often don't leave because of what you did wrong. They leave because of what you didn't even realize you weren't doing. The conversations not had, the comfort not given, the attention not paid. She doesn't leave you for another man, at least not at first. She leaves you for the version of herself that feels unloved. And eventually, she seeks a space where that version can breathe again. Silence becomes her final defense, her shield against disappointment, because words already failed her. And here's where it stings the most. When she finally walks away without explanation, she isn't trying to punish you. She's trying to protect herself. She believes that if she speaks, she'll either be dismissed or pulled back into promises that won't change anything. So instead, she disappears, not because she's heartless, but because staying would hurt her more than leaving ever could. Here's the harsh reality most men never face. Women rarely abandon suddenly, they detach in stages. First, it's emotional. She stops sharing the small details of her day, not because they don't matter, but because she's convinced you won't listen with the same curiosity you once did. Then, it's physical. Her touch becomes less frequent, not cold, but cautious, as if she's already guarding her heart from the intimacy that used to feel effortless. Finally, it's spiritual. She stops envisioning a future with you. That's the final break, the point of no return, where her silence becomes permanent. And when you finally notice, it feels like a cruel trick. But to her, it was a long goodbye you just never heard. Men often mistake consistency for safety. You think, we've been together for years, so she'll always be here. But women don't measure safety in time. They measure it in presence, in emotional depth, in how alive the relationship still feels. If she feels unseen, time doesn't comfort her. It suffocates her. You may look back and say, but I provided, I stayed, I didn't betray her. And yet, she leaves. Why? Because love isn't built only on what you didn't do wrong. It's built on what you did right, repeatedly, intentionally, even when life was busy and you thought she'd understand your silence. She wanted your effort, not your excuses, your attention, not your assumptions. This is the part men wrestle with, the feeling of being blindsided. But ask yourself honestly, was she really distant for the first time when she left? Or had she been distant for months, maybe years, and you convinced yourself it was just a phase? Women don't vanish. They fade. And by the time she's gone, the fading has already turned her heart invisible. That's why her exit feels so sudden, yet so complete. Because while you were holding on to routine, she was holding on to hope. And when that hope died, her silence became louder than any explanation could ever be. Her leaving without words isn't a mystery, it's a message. The question is, will you ignore it like the others, or will you finally learn how to hear what was never said aloud? Silence is not emptiness. Silence is a statement. When a woman leaves without explanation, that silence carries every unshed tear, every unanswered question, every moment she felt invisible. You see, men often crave confrontation. They think if she just yells, if she just argues, at least there's something to fight for. But when she chooses silence, it means she's already fought those battles in her mind 1,000 times, and she's too tired to fight anymore. Her silence is not weakness. It's her final strength. It's her way of saying, I gave everything I could, and it still wasn't enough. That's the wound she carries, and it's the one that leaves men broken when they finally understand it too late. The male instinct is to search for logic. Why didn't she just tell me what she needed? Why couldn't she just say it straight? But women aren't wired to demand love. They want it given freely. When she has to ask over and over, it no longer feels real to her. She doesn't want to beg you to notice her. She wants you to feel her absence before she's even gone. That's why the silence cuts deeper than any words could, because it shows you she no longer believes words will change anything. And here's the truth that stings the most. Women don't always want perfect men, but they want present men. You didn't need to have all the answers, but you needed to notice her questions. You didn't have to solve her insecurities, but you had to hold them with care. When those needs go unmet, her heart begins writing its farewell letter, line by line, in invisible ink. By the time she leaves, that letter is complete, and she doesn't need to read it out loud. Her silence is the signature at the bottom. Many men only start to value presence when it's too late, when the bed feels too big, the phone too quiet, and the silence too heavy. But here's the hidden opportunity. That silence, as painful as it is, can either destroy you or rebuild you. If you dare to face it, her silence can become your teacher. It can force you to ask, Not, why did she leave? But what did I miss? What didn't I give? And how can I be the man who no woman feels the need to leave in silence again? There's something you need to understand. When a woman leaves without explanation, it doesn't mean she stopped caring overnight. In fact, most of the time, it's the opposite. She cared too deeply, for too long, without receiving enough in return. That quiet departure is not proof of a cold heart. It's proof of a heart that burned itself out waiting for warmth. And that's why it stings so much for a man. Because you realize she wasn't emotionless. She was exhausted. Her silence wasn't empty. It was full of all the words she was too tired to repeat. Men often confuse loyalty with love. You think, she's still here, so everything must be fine. But women don't leave the moment love starts to fade. They leave when respect and hope disappear. And respect doesn't vanish because of one mistake. It fades when she notices a pattern, when her feelings are brushed aside, when her efforts go unnoticed, when her dreams feel unsupported. Hope doesn't die in a day either. It withers each time she gives you another chance to meet her in the middle, and you don't show up. By the time she's gone, love is no longer the question. It's survival. She leaves to protect the pieces of herself she feels slipping away. Here's where the brutal truth comes in. Women don't explain because explanations rarely change outcomes. If she told you she felt invisible, would you suddenly see her? If she told you she felt unloved, would you suddenly love her differently? Maybe for a week, maybe for a month. But she's not leaving for short-term promises. She's leaving because the long-term pattern broke her spirit. And that's the difference. Men often hear explanations as complaints. Women deliver them as cries for connection. When those cries fall on deaf ears, silence becomes her last language. But there's a deeper lesson here. That silence is not only about her, it's also about you. It's the mirror you were too afraid to look into. Because when she's gone, you're forced to sit with yourself, to see the ways you stopped trying, to face the fact that love is not something you keep just by being there. It's something you keep by showing up with intention, over and over. Her silence may feel like abandonment, but it's really an invitation to rise, to grow, to never let another woman feel like leaving quietly is her only option. When a woman leaves without explanation, men often label her as cold, heartless, or ungrateful. But those labels are shields, a way to protect yourself from the sting of reality. The truth is harder. She once loved you enough to give you everything, and now she loves herself enough to walk away. That's not cruelty. That's survival. And survival doesn't require an explanation, because explanations are for those still fighting, still invested. Silence, on the other hand, is the final proof that she has nothing left to give. It's not rejection of you as a person. It's rejection of the version of the relationship that drained her. And that's a truth most men don't want to confront. But here's the deeper psychology. Women leave in silence because they've already spoken their truth countless times. Not in long speeches, but in small, vulnerable moments. The night she asked you to sit with her, and you brushed it off because you were tired. The time she told you about her fears, and you laughed them away. The countless moments when her love language went unanswered. Each one was a conversation you didn't realize you were having. And by the time she stopped talking, she had already decided. Her heart deserved a place where it could be heard without begging. That's why her silence feels like betrayal, because it exposes how unaware you were. It shows you that she didn't just leave the relationship, she outgrew it. And growth doesn't come with an explanation. It comes with distance. Her leaving is not just about what you failed to give her. It's about the man she hoped you would become, the man she waited for, the man she finally stopped waiting to see. That's the wound men carry. Not that she left, but that she left believing you'd never change. And this is where your choice begins. You can let her silence destroy you, sink into bitterness, and call all women unpredictable. Or you can let her silence sharpen you, force you to reflect, and become the man who never has to face that kind of departure again. Her silence is brutal, yes, but it's also a gift. If you're strong enough to use it as the wake-up call that most men spend their whole lives ignoring. If you've ever had a woman leave you without explanation, understand this. She didn't vanish into the night because she enjoyed hurting you. She left because staying would have hurt her more. And the silence she left behind wasn't empty. It was filled with the lessons you refused to see while she was still there. That silence is a mirror, and most men are terrified to look into it because it reflects the truth about how they showed up in the relationship. But avoiding that mirror only guarantees one thing. You'll repeat the same story with the next woman, and the next, until you finally face yourself. The pain you feel when she walks away is heavy, but it has the power to build you into someone stronger, someone more aware, someone more dangerous in love, not in a destructive way, but in the sense that you become a man no woman ever wants to leave quietly again. Because you'll learn how to notice the subtle signs. You'll learn how to hold her emotions with strength instead of brushing them aside. You'll learn that love is not about grand gestures once a year, but about consistent presence, attention, and care in the moments that seem small but mean everything to her. And here's the truth you were never supposed to know. Women don't want perfect men. They want men who see them, who hear them, who make them feel safe enough to never wonder if their love is one-sided. When you give that, silence never has to become her final word. But if you ignore it, if you stay blind to the whispers in her heart, then yes, she'll leave again. And when she does, the silence will feel just as crushing, just as confusing, just as endless. So now the choice is yours. Will you let her silence break you, or will you let it shape you? Will you remain the man who keeps asking, why did she leave? Or become the man who finally understands the answer before it's too late? Now I want to ask you, have you ever had a woman leave you without an explanation? How did it change you? Share your story in the comments, because your truth might help another man wake up before it's too late. And if this video spoke to you, like it, subscribe, and share it with a friend who needs to hear these words tonight.